So, David, I'm going to start with what's going on at City Hall today. When I mean what's going on, lots going on. We had Dominique Olivier earlier in the week resign. Today, just moments ago, we heard the mayor saying she believes that Isabelle Beaulieu, the woman who took over the OCPM from Dominique Beaulieu, or from Dominique Olivier rather, should be, in fact, be fired as well. So what do you think about the mess that's there, and the fact that the mayor says they're going to freeze the money that the OCPM was going to get, I guess, heading into the next year?
Well, I'm getting the sense that the mayor is in total and complete crisis management mode here, and it smells like scapegoating here, because by going all out against Isabelle Beaulieu and reacting the way she's reacting. Remember, when she presented the budget earlier this week and she was asked about Isabelle Beaulieu, she reiterated that Isabelle Beaulieu should make the decisions that are imposed by the situation and not going all out the way she did today. And you heard Dominique Olivier's testimony today. Basically, she hasn't done anything wrong. She's like, well, I basically did what I did, and it was reasonable. Now, let's remember something here. Who hired Isabelle Beaulieu at the OCPM?
Exactly.
That was Dominique Olivier in 2015. Who proposed that Isabelle Beaulieu should replace Dominique Olivier in 2022? It was the Plante administration. So this person who came in as leading the OCPM at around March 2022 is responsible for everything that's been going on there, even before she ran the place, going back to 2014. And if this was just normal, as Dominique Olivier has said, then why did she feel the need to resign? Because of a few hateful emails and because she was a distraction? Here's your news for you. You resigned on Monday. You're still a distraction. And next week, you're going to still be a distraction because Isabelle Beaulieu, who was very close, obviously, to Dominique Olivier and very close to the Plante administration, isn't going to go down alone. If she is fired, if there is a city council motion to fire her on Monday, I foresee, I don't know, I may be wrong, but she might take a lawyer. She might give a tell-all interview to the same people at TVA that broke the story about Dominique Olivier's spending. And the fact is this is all in the context of this very unpopular budget, this bizarre budget. While increasing taxes, it's still increasing spending, and was, before the scandal, preparing to give even more money to the OCPM. And one last point about all this. In 2017, let's talk about facts. This is beyond perception. The Auditor General sent a letter to Dominique Olivier, then the head of the OCPM, saying you have serious problems in the way you're managing your OCPM. And when asked about this today, Dominique Olivier said, well, we just answered the letter. We said thank you very much, and we thought we were done. I was a minister, and I was also a CEO of a government corporation when I was at the Olympic Park. And I was verified both as a minister and both as a CEO. I was verified by the Auditor General. When you get a report of the Auditor General, what you actually have to do, you do a dashboard and you work for the next year, 2 or 3 even, depending on the complexity of the issues raised by the Auditor General. You have a dashboard and you're saying, okay, this is what I'm doing to correct. So neither Dominique Olivier, neither Isabelle Beaulieu, under the supervision overall of the mayor of Montreal, and beginning in 2017, who was that? That was, starting in November 2017, that was Valérie Plante. Nobody, absolutely nobody, did anything to reply convincingly about the miscues and the mismanagement that the Auditor General had already identified. So this is a puck on all three houses, and the buck always stops at the top. And it's still the mayor. The mayor of Montreal still has to answer for these two nominations, for the bad management that's up until today is still ongoing at the OCPM. And I bet we're going to still hear about this in the days and weeks to come.
What I'm noticing, and you tell me if it's the same on your part, if you're noticing the same thing. Like, we're still talking, for sure, we're talking about the OCPM, which I kind of think the mayor naively thought was just going to go away. Oh, Dominic Olivier resigns. Okay, we're done with this. No, it's not going away. We're still talking about that. We're definitely still talking about this lousy budget. What we're not talking about a whole lot anymore is the mayor's $600 on the wine in Vienna. And do you think that's just a one-off, or is there an ongoing investigation to other spending that was, not, money not going where it should have gone?
Well, here's the problem with this. Let's face it, this poor crisis management, because this goes back to now over 2 weeks now. Because remember, we're not talking about the first 10 days of this, where Mayor Plante and Dominique Olivier were saying there's no there there.
Yeah.
And so you add this last week to those 10 days prior. And so now this is like, like that little piece of yarn that is, you start pulling on it.
The fray, yeah.
And you're pulling.
And it gets
and you're
longer
pulling,
and longer and longer.
And ultimately the entire sweater becomes unraveled.
Unraveled, yeah.
I'm wondering if we're not on this, because now the bigger question, and with, again, the very important backdrop of this very unpopular budget and this bizarrely crafted budget in the current context, economically speaking, is the fact that now the big question is, what else is there in this $7 billion budget, in this $7 billion city that is mismanaged as poorly as the OCPM?
Look, we're going to have to wait to find out. It'll be interesting to see how council decides to follow the mayor's lead, suggesting that she should, in fact, Isabelle Beaulieu be fired. So that's going to happen fairly soon.
Well, she's got the majority.
Yeah.
So.
Let me move and shift to provincial politics for a second. We spent some time, David, talking about what's going to be a massive teacher strike if this actually happens, and there's no reason to suggest it won't come next week. And someone sent me a text. You're a former provincial cabinet. I mean, you were a cabinet minister in a different government. And I wonder if this is the playbook, because I said, look, as much as Sonia LaBelle will come on and let people know that she's not sitting on her hands, that they're at the table negotiating, they're trying really hard, even though we know they're so far apart. Someone is suggesting the government will legislate teachers back to work after a few days of strike as essential employees, because after a few days of that strike, they'll have saved a few $1 million by not having to pay teachers, of course, because they'd be on strike. Then they can go back to the table and say, okay, we can come up with the extra money because they didn't have to pay them for the time they were on strike. Is that a plausible scenario?
I mean, I don't think that's the game plan. I honestly think right now that the Legault government is a bit living in the land of make-believe right now, because this whole strategy, let's remember, these governments, when you game out your strategy, you do it several months in advance. And I really think the issue here is Legault and his principal lieutenants prepared this strategy back in June and during the summer when they were still riding very high in the polls. And they thought that they had the upper hand on the unions, and the unions were still going to be very unpopular at this time. And again, let's not minimize the $7 million to the LA Kings, which is going to play a big role, because now you're seeing the transformation. And we saw this when I was in government, when Gaétan Barrette imposed his reform, and it crystallized public opinion in favor of who? The nurses. When Barrette made a big deal with the doctors. It's funny how we're repeating history, right? Mark Twain said, history doesn't repeat itself, but it does rhyme. And here we have it again. What was announced this week? The government made a deal with the specialists again.
Yeah.
And $7 million to the LA Kings. You have a member of the caucus coming out publicly. You've never seen that before in the last 5 years of the Legault administration. coming out and saying, I think we have a problem here, Houston. We have a problem. Bernard Drinville coming out saying, well, maybe we could have rethought the timing of that announcement. And Legault doubling down today, saying, well, we have to invest in leisure. What? $7 million? He's obsessed with trying to get the Nordiques. His feeling, and Éric Girard is the same, but I think the obsession here is getting a team to Quebec City to win back Quebec City. And so they're doubling down on this. But my point about the nurses when we were in power and how Gaétan Barrette just crystallized public opinion for the nurses and ultimately was a big reason why Philippe Couillard couldn't win a second mandate in 2018. Right now, with all the way the Legault government is managing this, both directly and with the extracurriculars around it, Legault is creating the same type of sympathy that has been rock solid for the nurses till now for the teachers. And now you have public opinion and people saying, you know what, teachers deserve it. Teachers deserve more. And you change the word teacher for nurses, you go back to 2017, 2018, it's the exact same thing.
Okay.
And so I think right now, I think Legault is playing this so that the strike will ultimately, the parents are ultimately going to say enough and side with the government on this. This is not what's happening. And on top of that, next week, the parties are back. Assemblée Nationale is going to be in session, so you got to have a hardcore question periods. And the parents, I think, right now are calling their MNAs. They're going to be talking to their MNAs this weekend and saying, hey, really? You're going to put us through this? And on top of that, you're going to give $7 million to Luc Robitaille and the LA Kings? Really?
I'm sure they'll be hearing that.
Really.
David Heurtel, former Quebec Liberal Cabinet Minister, Council at Fasken. David, thank you. You have a good weekend.
Bon weekend.